Hey guys, thanks for listening again. This is the BowRush podcast, episode 003. My name is Travis Stowe. My co-host is Scott Nelson. How you doing, Scott?
Hey, not too bad. How you doing, Travis?
Man, I am excited. You know why?
I can only imagine. I'm guessing it's because we have a great guest on this next edition of the BowRush podcast.
That's true. But on top of that, it's archery season. September 13th, Georgia. I think I only slept maybe an hour or two because I was so excited when I finally got it into the woods, finally getting in there, realizing that deer season is here. And man, I can't wait. I mean, this is going to be a good season. I think because of the weather we've had this year, I think it's going to be a really plentiful season for all of us.
Man, I'm telling you. So we just opened up this last weekend. There's places all over the U.S., a lot of stuff out west has been open for, a week or 2 weeks. But there's nothing that is exciting as waking up and knowing that you're getting to get out in the woods and you're getting to put all of your preparation in the off season to work.
I couldn't even sleep.
Oh, I'm telling you, unfortunately, I got stuck doing some overtime and working, Saturday and Sunday and Monday. But my phone was blowing up between you, our buddy Brandon, Anthony, out in Utah, and a few other guys out that way. And I'm excited for every single guy that got the chance to get out there. Hopefully I start getting a lot more pictures of those big bucks down,
Well, yeah, what's interesting is that our topic today so happens to be the continuance of the first segment, which was hunting public land in the West. Well, we're in the East, and so my opening day happened to be on public land, a WMA up into the North Georgia mountains. And I felt like I could not sleep. I think I had about 2 hours of I would almost consider sleep. And when I got up, I got everything ready. I drove out to the area. I started seeing some deer movement. In fact, I think I saw a huge buck literally just cornering off the side of the road as I'm coming in. So that excited me even more. That right there was a perfect moment for me, I think, to start off my season in archery.
Yeah, from everything that, I've been hearing and people calling and talking to me and asking kind of what's going on with some of the areas that I hunt. Everyone's talking about how a lot of the velvet's already dropped. Acorns are just about at that point where they're already about to drop. And acorns are a huge factor. That's something we're going to dive into a little bit with the guests that we have on, is how important acorns are as a food source.
Who are we having again?
Monty Perrin from howtohunt.com. And that's 2, the number in the middle there. We brought him on intentionally to talk a little bit about hunting public land, how to approach it, how to find it, and how to be successful while hunting it. The biggest point, and to give you a little bit of an insight to what he's going to talk about, the biggest point he makes is when you hunt public land, it's all about your attitude.
I can't wait. Let's get him on.
Absolutely. Hey, Monty, how you doing today, bud?
I'm doing well. Hope you are.
It's so exciting to be able to actually talk to you because you are a wealth of knowledge, my friend.
Well, I'm flattered. Thank you very much. That's awesome.
So you're local. Where are you at?
I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
But I used to travel to Hartwell because, and I specifically went to Hartwell Dam because it's archery only, and I wanted to get in the woods early, and their season started about 2 to 3 weeks before ours did. Mm-hmm. So I would go down there and hunt on the dam. And the reason I went to the archery land is because I bumped into 1 or 2 people every now and then, but it was never a problem. There was plenty of opportunity and plenty of room.
Oh man!
So are you in Georgia now, Scott?
Yes, sir. I am. I just I got here right at about 5 weeks ago.
Wow! And so you're in the same area in Gwinnett County, like Travis?
I'm not. I'm actually down in Cobb County right now. So
But that's all still that's still Atlanta suburbs, right?
Yeah. I'm probably about an hour and 20 away from where Travis is at.
Okay. When you guide on the Chattahoochee, do you do any guiding in April and May?
Guide year round.
Do you hear turkeys on that river in April?
It depends on where we're at. The majority of what I do is from Lanier from Buford Dam down to just right inside of Atlanta. So that's what my thing is right now. Is I'm going to be knocking doors trying to find some turkey property.
Well, I'm gonna tell you something. If there's plenty of opportunity on. I was telling Travis earlier. I have I have had access to lots of land in the past, and I don't now. By design, to be honest with you. And I did all my turkey hunting this spring with a canoe on Carr Lake, which is a core lake. I was covering birds every day, and I never saw a hunter. I take that back. I saw one opening day, and he was on one side of the bridge, and I went to the other.
That's your half. This is my half. Go.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
Yep.
funny because when me and Travis we first started hunting together, we had a property that was up kind of North Georgia ish.
Franklin County.
Yeah, Franklin. And there was the defining point of the property was a river, was like a creek that ran through. And we had always talked about, getting a canoe and floating in because where we felt the deer were really bedding down and traveling was deep into the property towards the river. And by the time we hiked in, we felt like we were probably walking through or at least spooking and deer getting down to that point. So we always wanted to get a canoe, start a couple miles up at the bridge and float in and sneak in from behind.
That's a good plan. I do a lot of that here, and I got a little 14-foot John boat with a 15-horse engine that I've never wet a hook out of. All I've ever done is hunt out of it. I turkey hunt and I deer hunt out of it. And I don't see hunters. I don't. And because I'm coming in. Now, listen, I'm not the first to ever talk about or do what I'm talking about doing. But here's the thing. Here's what the filter is. It's work. You got to hook a boat up. You got to get it in the water. You got to go to your spot. You got to tie it off. You got to carry all your stuff. You got to get up in the tree. You got to come back, find your boat. It filters out a lot of people, okay, because of the effort it takes. I'm not saying I'm the only one doing that, but I honestly have been doing that since the mid 90s, and I bumped into one hunter, and you know what I did? I backed out, got my boat, and went to another spot because I knew the likelihood of me running into two hunters. I'd been doing it 5 years by this time, and that was the first hunter I ever run into. I knew the likelihood of doing it again wasn't going to happen that day, so I just went somewhere else. And because of the effort that I make, I'd rather hunt there than anywhere I've ever had. And I've had some places people would have been real excited to be part of.
Well, that kind of leads into, what this segment of the podcast is about. Initially last week we had a guy on from out west, from out in Colorado, that was very knowledgeable about public land out there and the regulations and the rules and really how to approach Western and Midwestern public land. The South, it's completely different. It's different terrain, different rules. The deer themselves, the deer, the turkey, the bear, different habitats, different habits. So, and from your experience, what's the best way to approach public land? Like, how do you find public land? How do you decide where you want to hunt, and where do you go from there?
Well, if you went back, and I've actually written several articles, and one of the publishers I used to write some articles for, I would write him an article, and I could tell he probably wasn't too excited about it because it was more about attitude than technique.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, I think you only got control of two things. That's your attitude and your actions. And the first thing you got to do to have a good chance to enjoy hunting on public land is to decide that you are going to enjoy hunting on public land. And if you do that, then it opens up a whole world of opportunity. See, I've as I said before, I've had access to a lot of different farms and private land, and I did a lot of work. It wasn't free because I would do nice things for those people, and I loved them. It was easy to do. It was expensive because it took a lot of time. Sometimes it would take some finances. Sometimes it was so. I spent a lot of time, effort, and money courting those people to have access to those farms.
Hmm.
And then I joined several hunting clubs, and I've been in some that I was really excited about, some I was less excited about. I will tell you, there was a common denominator in every hunting club I was ever in. There was always somebody in that club that I'd rather not be hunting with Okay, and I'm just going to call a spade a spade. Okay.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
I never caused a problem. I can go back to any one I've ever been in, but I just chose to remove myself from those circumstances. Well, one of the beautiful things about public land is that if you're creative and you approach it with the right attitude and you're willing to do something to separate yourself from most of the other people, you it you can have a whole lot of it, at least where I live and where I've hunted. And I've hunted in several states. You can separate yourself from a lot of people just by the extra effort that you're willing to take.
Hmm.
And I live in an area where they call them game lands here, same as the WMA. We have game lands with food plots, and some of our duck impoundments that they don't flood till November are just full of food. I mean,
Wow.
it's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's a hunter's paradise, if you understand what I'm saying. But and some of it is in areas that you can't. It's archery only land. So which really is exciting to me. They're going to flood it and let people duck hunt it, but you can't hunt deer with anything but a bow.
That's pretty cool.
So if you look for those special circumstances and decide that, all right, I'm going to do more, I'm going to be willing to do what others are not willing to do to separate myself from those folks so that I can have a place that I'm really excited about hunting. I'm telling you, they're out there.
You know,
And there's not just a few of them. Go ahead.
that kind of brings up a subject, is that you're saying that you're going into areas that a lot of people, maybe you won't see them because you're going and finding these spots, but sometimes you do. You end up walking onto somebody, and I've had this happen a couple of times. What some of the things that you would, I mean, do you feel like it's still comfortable if you know you want to be in a particular spot, though you walk on someone, they're already in their stand? Do you still proceed through and go to the area you want, or do you back off? Even though you're not necessarily going to hunt near them, you're going way past, but you have to pass through their area, their terrain that they've already picked out. Do you feel it's comfortable enough to, hey, I'll still keep going through. I'll find my spot I was originally picked out. Should you have a secondary or a thirdary backup plan?
Well, I always have a plan B, but what you just described to me, I think, was a situation where maybe somebody was already in a stand.
Right. They got there before you. They were up earlier, and as you're going
Yeah.
in, I mean, that's happened to me a couple of times, and I've always had that moment of like, uh-oh, should I keep going? Because I felt bad. I felt, most likely I could have spooked the deer if there was one around, and I didn't know what to do. I backed off a little bit, but then I kind of set because I didn't plan ahead, and I was, for a good almost 20 minutes, I was twirling my thumbs, almost thinking, where am I going to go? I have no idea. And then I finally just kind of walked back to my truck and picked somewhere. But I felt pretty bad for that day, and also felt bad for the guy. I just didn't know if, like, should I just kept going on to the area I knew I wanted to be in, or should I, was it good that I backed off, and what was my mistake?
Well, if I was going to, as far as what you did that day, I don't think you did anything wrong, so you shouldn't feel bad. You didn't go in there to intentionally disturb anybody's stand or hunt. It just happened that way. And it sounds to me like you were really gracious, so you should feel good about that. Okay. Now, if the person was in a stand, if I'm hunting a spot, I know that spot well enough to know where the deer are likely to be bedding. So I would probably try to, if I wanted to get to a spot beyond him, I would probably take a different route and just give him a wide enough berth and I'd stay close to that bedding area if it was in the morning, because I would expect the deer to be out maybe feeding and going to come to that bedding area lately, or I'd stay away from the bedding area and go on to my spot. I'd have it marked with a GPS so I could get in there in an alternative way and not disturb him. Now, if you were both on the ground, say you're in a parking place and this guy shows up, then years ago I was turkey hunting, and one of the places that I turkey hunt around here is a draw hunt, and you can only hunt for 3 days. And it was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday hunt last week of the season. And I went Thursday morning, early in the morning. I literally was 35 miles from my house with my turkey gear on my back, walking away from my truck at 4:35, and somebody pulled into the parking lot. Well, I'm obviously there first, so I just wanted to talk to him, tell him what was up, tell him where I was headed. He pulls up, and I said, hey, how you doing? And we visited for a minute. I said, well, I'm going down the path here, and when I get to the power line, I'm going to go on past it and get in that first food plot on the right. And he said, that's where I was going. And I didn't crack a smile. Now, it's dark. He can't see me too good. I can't see him. But he says, that's where I was going. I literally didn't crack a smile. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll arm wrestle you for it.
It's a duel.
He was so pitiful. He said, really? I said, no. I said, I'll tell you what. I said, are you hunting tomorrow? It was Thursday. He said, no, I'm going to the beach. I said, you go ahead and hunt it then. I'll go somewhere else because like I said, I've always got a plan B, and I went to the second spot and killed a turkey. Well, the following Saturday, I was in the same situation, literally 4:35 at the same spot, walking away from my truck, and somebody else pulls in. Same thing. I talked to him a minute, told him where I was heading. He said, I got one roosted in there. I looked at him. I said, Mister, I said, obviously I was here first. I said, I promise you I won't shoot you. Don't shoot me. And I and, and I went on and I killed a turkey that day too. Okay. So those are just one of them situations where that was one of them spots that I knew there was birds and everybody else and their brother did too. And I knew you had to be there early. And I was gracious the first time, but it was the last day of the season on the second time, and I decided I was going to go get it.
In the sense of, let's say you happen to be the first one there, and turkey or as well as your deer, and you're in the stand, you've climbed up, you're already prepared, and someone did come through. Hypothetically, let's say they made some noise, and you're pretty sure that was loud enough anyone and a neighbor could see and hear. Is that something that you might think, well, my day's pretty much shot, time to get down, just recoup, go somewhere else, or come back this afternoon, or should you stick it out?
I think you should stick it out, and I think you should decide that it's okay. And the reason I say decide that it's okay, because if you don't decide that it's okay, you're going to sit there the whole time and be miserable. But I'm telling you, it probably has less impact than you think it does. How many times have you heard tell stories about people shooting a deer and then not too long after that shooting another one with a gun?
That happened to me.
Okay, well, there you go. So, it's hunting, and everything is, everything works out, the way it's going to work out. And so, in my opinion, you should just say, okay, the guy just walked through here, and I'm just going to have a good hunt anyway. A whole lot of this is about attitude. I was hunting with, do you guys know who Mike McKenzie is?
McKenzie?
Mike McKenzie was a Realtree cameraman, and he's deceased now. He died like 2 or 3 falls ago. He fell out of a tree stand. Mm-hmm. You know who I'm talking about now?
Something's starting to ring a bell.
Absolutely. Yes, okay. Absolutely.
In 2000, I had bought a camera support arm from Mike McKenzie, and Mike McKenzie was building every major TV show and video production company in the hunting business was using most of them were using his tree supports then, camera supports. And I called him and told him I wanted to video my own hunts and I wanted to do a good enough job, but you couldn't tell I was the only one there. And he said, you can't do it, but I'll sell you an arm. And so I bought one, and I did it. I felt like I did it, and I was pleased with what I did. And I called him back and told him that I had gotten it done and that I would probably see him at the Dixie Deer Classic, and I'd stop by and show him some of my footage. Well, I showed up at the show, and he was so busy on Friday when I showed up, and he looked like he didn't know me. And we'd had several conversations, and he acted like he didn't even know me. And I looked at him and I said, well, you were so nice on the phone. and he laughed. He said, come back later when I ain't so busy. So I came back, and we talked for a long time. Well, he ended up hunting with me in Florida, and I had 2 special opportunity public land hunting permits that I had gotten. I was trying to get the Grand Slam, and that's the way I was going to get the Osceola. And those tags were transferable, and I had 3 actually, 1 for one place and 2 for the same place. And I asked him if he wanted to go, and he said yes. So we went turkey hunting and down in Florida, and we spent all day the day before the hunt, and I saw 1 track. I thought, and we didn't hear anything, we didn't see anything. I didn't see no dusting bowls, I didn't see much sign, and you couldn't tell what scratching was. There's so many armadillos, you couldn't tell whether it was armadillos or turkeys. So I thought, man, I don't know if I've got a pig in a poke here or not. But I did go out the evening before the hunt and heard a turkey gobble. So we were pretty excited. We had one roosted. It's a 45-minute walk to hoof back in there where we were. And as we got there, I'm telling you, somebody literally knocked that bird off the limb. See, Florida hunters used to be able to legally shoot them off the limb. So they developed some pretty good knock them off the limb skills. They really did. And when they made it illegal, they didn't want to give that up. so this particular person had snuck in there, and he'd killed our bird, the one that we were excited about. So literally, we're standing there. We just heard the shotgun shot, and a vehicle pulls up. Now, a vehicle pulls up. We walked 45 minutes to get where we're at, and here comes a vehicle. And I'm thinking, how'd he get in here? So it was a wildlife officer, and he got out of his truck and said, "Where was that shot?" And we pointed the direction, and off he went. Well, Mike looked at me, and now we hadn't heard any other birds. And Mike said, "Well, what are we going to do now?" I said, "Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do." I said, "I'm going to walk down this road right here, and I'm going to walk and call, and I'm going to pretend this is the best place on the planet that I've ever turkey hunted, and I'm going to see if I can't hook up on a bird." We didn't go 200 yards, and less than an hour later, we had a dead bird on the ground. What we did there was we controlled what we could control, and it worked out. Now, me and Mike killed 3 birds. There was 9 birds, 54 hunters that got drawn, killed 9 birds, and Mike and I killed 3 of them. And you'll enjoy that, but you won't enjoy sitting there doubting whether it's going to be any good or not.
Stop
Does that
worrying
make
about
sense?
the kill
Absolutely.
and enjoying the moment.
Yeah, or take go somewhere else for the opportunity to kill. If you don't believe that stand can produce right now, I've killed a whole bunch of deer where I went to, and most of it was on private ground, where somebody came in and boogered up my spot, and I just went somewhere else.
I hope Scott doesn't mind me saying this, but this is when him and I originally were rifle hunting, and we happened to go on. I had a double stand. It was I believe it was called a Big Brother, and every time I was hunting, he'd have a different spot, and I always sit on this area, and I'd get a deer. So I said, you know what? Let's both sit in this stand, and we did. Well, as we're climbing up, he was climbing up first. Handed his rifle in as I'm really trying to get in and sit down, and he fired the gun, and it was pitch black. This loud noise echoed all the way down. I sit down. I was like, well, that ended our day because I thought honestly it's ruined.
Yeah.
And now you know why I bow hunt. That was probably our maybe 7th or 8th time hunting together, and that is the point when I loved the outdoors, and I grew up in the outdoors and fishing and camping and hiking, and never got a chance to really have firearms or I never really grew up around them. I was clueless. I didn't know what to do. It was I felt so bad because every time we had solid chances at deer, and that I felt like I ruined the hunt. So it kind of does go back, and this is one thing that I really have learned since the time I was 19 and I met Travis. It's if you focus on the hunt and the opportunity that you have to just be outside in a tree stand or walking and stalking like you do out west, just
Mm-hmm.
enjoy the time you're out there, and whether you're quote unquote successful and have a deer on the ground or an elk on the ground or a turkey on the ground, you've enjoyed the day. And I mean, what's better than getting outside and actually enjoying it? So
Yep.
it's
I,
definitely the attitude thing that you talk about.
yep.
100% believer.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I walked to a tree stand behind my house. I live in an urban area, but there's a good bit of undeveloped land behind my house, and I have access just a few acres right here behind the house. And I went back. Oh, this is 20 years ago. And I went back there, and I literally I did have a stand hanging back. And I went in and climbed up in my stand and pulled my bow up, hung everything up. And as soon as I do that, I usually just I want to get settled so badly when I get in the woods. As soon as I get settled, I'll usually just stop and just chill for a second and let the woods get quiet, because I feel like everything seems so loud when you're getting set up to me. Okay. And I did not have an arrow nocked. I did not have my release on. And I looked to my right, and there's a deer 3 steps from me, a deer that I would have shot. And I don't have my release on. I said, well, maybe I can shoot with fingers. I said, well, I haven't practiced that. I'm having this conversation in my mind. I said, well, I haven't practiced that. I better not try that. So I said, I know what. I'm going to slip my finger through this Velcro and just see if I can get it to come apart without making too much noise. And as I'm doing that, he's kind of reacting a little bit, but he never looks up. And I'm sitting there thinking, am I going to get this deer? I'm having this conversation with my friend. Am I going to get this deer? Am I going to get this deer? And finally I said, I don't care if I do or not. It is really cool just being this close to him. I ended up getting the deer, but it really didn't matter because it was just so much fun being that close to a deer. It wasn't something I'd done that much at that time.
You said, how old are you?
57.
57. And still today, you still get the shakes when deer come around? Any kind of game coming around?
I never have gotten the shakes when deer come around, okay?
Okay.
But I've always gotten, don't take this wrong, I've always been, and let me tell you, I've learned because I used to try to video people. I've learned that when you hear people saying, I missed a deer because of this or that happened, truth is they probably choked. because they were so excited, and that's good. I'm glad they enjoyed it. Okay. Well, I've always been able to enjoy it and still keep my nerves together till after the deer was down. I mean, and I love being close to deer to this day, just like I did the very first time I did it. But I've always been able to keep it together till after and do what I need to do, and then I got even more excited.
This Saturday, I obviously it was opening season for Georgia. I guess it was opening season for you. Is that correct?
It was.
Okay,
Hmm.
and so I was happy. I walked in. I was in the Cooper's Creek area, set up, and sure enough, around 7:15 in the morning, about 75 yards away, I happened to look up more towards my 11 o'clock. I could only see the legs slowly start walking in. I knew for a fact what it was, and my heart started pumping. And I don't know if it's necessarily considered the shakes, but I definitely felt more nervous. I was excited. I was a little nervous. I was like, okay, where's all my stuff? And I was starting to play scenarios in my head on like if it happens to come my way, should I do some sort of call? I mean, I was going through so many different things. It happened to just go the opposite direction, but still, that one moment of just seeing them come towards me, I was immediately excited, and I felt which I would consider is kind of like the shakes, but. Every time a deer have come towards me and I have taken a shot, I think I'm in the same boat where you. I become almost cold steel. I don't have any movement. I can pull back to full draw and just sit and wait for the right moment. And I don't feel like there's any kind of shaking, or I don't feel like my heart beating is messing up my positioning. But beforehand, I do feel like I get those types of shakes.
I used to get excited like that. I really did. I still do get excited. Okay. But when I early on when I would get the first deer I ever took a shot at with a bow, I was so excited I forgot. It was like I went goofy. I did everything but aim. Okay, so the arrow went over its head about 8 feet, and but I was so excited, just to be that close to a deer, and so I had to learn to. So I guess I'm remembering as you talk here some of the things that I went through to get me through that. And I had this conversation with a friend of mine right along that time frame, and I learned to in my mind, when I would see a deer, I'd learn to say, "There's a deer. So what?" And I would literally say that in my brain for the first 5 deer I killed with a bow. There's a deer. So what? But I'm still loving it, still enjoying it. I'm just able to perform, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, so going back talking about some of the videos you've done in the past, the one that I just recently watched, let me pull that up real quick. Yeah, that is, just make sure I get the name right here. Deer hunting, 7 sure steps.
Uh-huh.
It's a great video. It really is, and I think it pertains a lot to kind of what this topic is about that we've started. Now, you don't have to go through and go through the full 7 steps and all of the great information you kind of went into on that video, but what are some keys? I mean, obviously, you talk a lot about, finding the bedding area, starting at that point,
Right.
finding the bedding area, and then, talk from there if you can.
First thing I do is I use Google Earth, and I make that point in the video because Google Earth will actually save you a lot of steps. I meant it in the video where I said a friend and I were talking about, he was a helicopter pilot. We were thinking about renting a helicopter for us to get a bird's eye view. This was back in the early 90s now. It wasn't a Google Earth, and topographical maps weren't easy to get, and they weren't cheap either. And so Google Earth will really, I mean, every place I've hunted the last 5 years, I've pulled up on Google Earth, and I've gotten really intimate with it in a short period of time. I've learned how to find the thick stuff. I think deer. What my system is what I call habitat based. I think they're going to use the thickest habitat available to them. And around here, we got a lot of cutover. We got a lot of managed land where people are burning and that type of thing on this public ground. It's really, really well managed. So they're creating the right kind of habitats. And if you learn what to look for on Google Earth and you find that bedding habitat, that for me is where I start. Once I find that bedding habitat, then it's a matter of spending time on the edge of that bedding habitat till I start seeing some trails, start finding some acorns, I really want to, if I can find some white oaks or some southern chestnut oaks. I haven't hunted any public ground here yet, haven't hunted much yet because our acorns aren't really on the ground yet. And I know that, this is a busy time for my business too, so I'm going to spend my time more wisely. But about 10 days from now, we're going to have some acorns on the ground, and I'm going to be hitting some of these spots that that I've hunted in the past, but I'm always adjusting. I always react to what I see. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to find that thickest habitat, the stuff. Listen, most young hunters, novice hunters, the reason they have a hard time learning how to bow hunt or getting into bow hunting is they want to see a long ways. And the reason they want to, I can speak about this intimately because that was me. The reason I want to see a long ways is because if the farther I can see, the more opportunity I'm going to have. Well, if you learn to fine tune some things and start thinking like in a 20-yard periphery, I've killed a whole lot of deer with my bow, but only one of them's been over 20 yards. And that may sound bragging. It's not bragging, okay? It's a fact. All right. I've shot one deer from a power line that was 30 yards away, and one deer came out and turned, and I actually had put I don't know how in the world I had a quiver full of arrows that I hadn't turned the nocks right on. So while I'm trying to get my nock squared away, one walks out of my shooting lane and another one comes in. I knew another one was coming, so I got that arrow switched around, and as it got in the right spot, I went, stopped it and shot it. So, but if I'm going to find the bedding habitat every single time, and that's where I'm going to start, then I'm going to start looking. If I'm on public land and there's no crops in the mix, I'm going to start looking for acorns. And I want to find chestnut oaks. I want to find white oaks, and the third preference for me is red oaks.
So why specifically? Because I've noticed you do talk a lot about finding white oaks as the first source, and then the southern chestnut oaks as the second source. Why are those specifically? What have you seen with deer that those are the ones they target?
That's their preference. Mm-hmm. Those are the magnets. They'll go out of their way. I live in a state where you can bait. Mm-hmm. And deer won't even touch corn if they can find white oak acorns or chestnut oak acorns. It's a waste of time. I've seen it literally germinate, sprout. I've seen it get rained on and germinate. Okay, so because they love white oak acorns. And years ago, I killed a deer my first day in the woods, my second day in the woods actually. 11 years later, I killed my second one. 11 years of trying, and 1 year. Toward probably year 9 or 10, somewhere in there, I was scouting on the opening day, before the opening day of gun season, and I bumped into this guy. And I'm up in Pisgah Forest, which is closer to you guys than where I'm at now, but up in the mountains in Pisgah Forest. And this guy's got his stand on his back, and it's Sunday afternoon, and obviously it looks to me like he knows something. He knows something I don't, because I'm stumbling around trying to figure out what's going on. And I got him to talk to me. Now, he grunted at me. He probably wasn't happy because I was in his honey hole, I guess. And he told me, he said, I asked him if he had any advice. He said, find some white oak acorns. Well, that was great advice. It would have been even greater if I knew what a white oak looked like. So I made a little mental note to self, learn what a white oak is. Okay.
I'm actually doing that right now.
White oaks are their preference, literally, and they're easy to find. They're easy to identify. Southern chestnut oaks are right there with them. And the red oaks, I'm not a biologist, but I've been told that they've got a lot of tannic acid in them. They prefer to let them sit on the ground, and maybe some of that tannic acid leach out before they'll eat them. But they'll go straight to those white oak acorns, and that's what they're going to eat.
Well, how do you feel about some of the other food sources, muscadines and apricots and the little bit more fruity sources? Where do those fall into place here?
Well, they're more difficult to hunt in my place because muscadines if you can find them, they're going to come to them. I'll tell you a funny story about muscadines. There's a state park in South Carolina called Croft State Park. It's a public place that you can apply to hunt in, and it's a bow hunt. And I applied and got drawn 1 year. And I went with my normal attitude, find some bedding cover, find the food source nearby, the funnels that lead you to that, set up in those spots. Well, we got there with 45 minutes of daylight left, me and 2 other guys. And my other 2 friends, they went and hung stands in 45 minutes. Literally, there's 45 minutes of daylight left. Well, I couldn't find anything I felt good about hunting with a bow in 45 minutes. So they asked me if I hung a stand. I said no. And they said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to put my stand on my back and put the wind in my face. I'm going to slip around until I see something I like. Well, I slipped around and I bumped some deer in one spot, and I didn't see, it was good to see the deer, but I didn't see any reason to set up right there in particular. So I couldn't find any contrast. It was nothing but big, mature woods, hardwoods, mostly hardwoods, some mixed pines. But I just couldn't find anything thick. And I had access to a lot of ground. I walked for an hour and a half. And I finally said, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this pack down because it's heavy. I'm going to mark this with my GPS. And remind me to talk about GPS real quick when we get done here, guys, if you will.
Absolutely.
I'm going to mark this with my GPS so I can come back to it, and I'm going to slip around with the wind in my face and see if I can get on a deer. Well, an hour later, I walked within 15 yards of a bedded deer, and I shot it and harvested the deer. Well, coming that afternoon, I was going in, and I decided that since I hadn't found any contrast, I was just going to keep hunting with the wind in my face. Well, I saw deer in the same spot that I'd seen the first deer that first morning. That did rest. Maybe I'm too bright, but I should have tried to figure out why, but I didn't. I said, it's just a fluke, I'm sorry. So the next morning, I walked past the same spot, and there's deer in the same spot, and they run off again. I said, all right, there's a reason there's deer there. I'm going to, me being the rocket scientist that I am, 3 times now, I'm going to walk over and say, well, there was muscadines and hulls all over the place, okay? Oh. I said, okay, now I know why they're here. Well, to be honest with you, I had walked for 2 days solid, and I was tired, and I didn't want to hang a stand. I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to I'm going to just sit on the ground right here that afternoon. And I went and scratched me out a spot on the ground and sat right on the ground, and I wasn't there for 15 minutes till the ants started eating me up. They were everywhere, so I said, I got to move. So I got up, and I literally moved to the right 10 yards. Well, 30 minutes later, there was a doe and a little dink. Her little fawn came in. And the dink gave me a shot. I didn't want to shoot the dink. But that doe came and went and put her nose right where I had just been sitting. Literally where I'd raked out my spot. She's 10 yards from me. I'm on the ground. She don't know I'm in the world. Well, when she did that, I happened to be looking at the dink, and the dink had noticed me by this time. And I said, all right, the gig's up. Well, she started and ran. But my point is that was the only time I've ever really had a reason to hunt muscadines. Around here, they're here. And if you can find them and you know deer are coming to them, and here's how you'll know. They eat them just like we do. They put them in their mouth and eat the pulp and spit out the hull.
Jeez.
So if you find that, then I would try to get on the side that's closest to what you know is the bedding area. Mm-hmm. And that's a good place to hunt. That's usually going to be a short-lived hunt. But I'm telling you, when there's acorns, that's a staple. You can count on it.
That's great. Great information. Yeah. I mean, we have followers. We don't have a massive group, but we want to be able to reference all of the interviews we do to be able to give our followers and listeners, an insight to on how to hunt different scenarios. And acorns is being in the South. Acorns is a huge tactical advantage when you can find them and when you know what you're looking for.
Well, I will say this: you'll hear a lot of times when people say, there's so many acorns this year that I'm having a hard time hunting. Well, what you've got to do is you've got to find the ones that are easy to get to. Mm-hmm. You got to find the ones that I've got a place that I hunt on public land. It actually is in the backyard of one of my customers. I'm a landscaper, and I used to hunt in their yard when they lived there. Well, I was following up a deer that I'd shot, and it led me onto the game lands. And while I got there, I found an amazing funnel. I looked up and I said, oh, this is amazing. I said, I need to hunt this. Well, the first time I hunted, I shot 2 does. And my longest shot was 5 yards. And they were coming out of a bedding area down on a creek bottom and had to come up this up the creek bottom and then turn and come up a steep bluff. And there was a little shelf in there. And that's what they were just wearing that shelf up to get to the acorns on top of the hill. Now, my point being there is that's one of those places that you hunt when there's a lot of acorns. You hunt a funnel that's going to get them to that spot. And funnels, that's another podcast.
That's a whole other
That's a big topic.
So, you talked, in that same video, finding bedding area, finding how they're traveling to the food source, whether it's food crops or it's acorns. And the thing you said was the biggest tactical advantage and something you thought was the most important thing was wind. You know, why is it wind? You know, there's so much on the market right now for scent control, whether it's your clothing or the sprays or what you're
Hmm.
washing or deodorant or gum. I mean, I've seen gum, and
Yeah.
that's just blows my mind. It's people are buying it, but
Yep.
There's toothpaste too.
Yep.
there's toothpaste. There's a little bit of everything. You said that you don't wear any of that. You don't use any of that. You purely rely on putting the wind in your face in between you and the deer, and stalking that way. Why and what do you do with that?
I'll tell you why. I am so thankful. I remember we used to have a thing here called the Dixie Deer Classic, still do.
Hmm.
And I could not wait for that thing to happen. It happens first part of March because I wanted to go. Well, the only thing we had outside of hunting season was hunting periodicals and a show like the Dixie Deer Classic to kind of give me an outdoor fix. I wanted to be around it somehow, if you understand what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Well, now with the internet, I don't have that. We don't have that issue. So, and I'm very thankful for the internet. I'm very thankful for the Outdoor Channel, the Sportsman Channel, all the other channels. I only get those two that I mentioned, though. And I'm real thankful for them. But they are literally loaded with marketing.
Hmm.
In my opinion, the best tree stands, the hottest selling tree stands are not necessarily the best tree stands. Okay, the hottest selling the hottest selling bows are not necessarily the best bows. They're the best marketed bows.
Hmm.
And a whole lot of what you see on scent stuff is a lot of marketing. Okay. Now, I'm not saying I would never, ever, 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 ever try to get somebody to think like I do about scent control in the wind. But I will tell you this little story. When a good friend of mine who had never killed a deer with a bow and I were going bow hunting about the second week of bow season one time, we're going to hunt on some public ground, and we pulled up to the spot that I was taking him to, and he said, "Where's your scent control suit?" I said, "I don't have one." He said, "Oh, you got to have a scent control suit." I said, "No, I don't." And he almost got in my face. He said, "Monty, you got to have a scent control suit." And I said, "No, I don't." I said, "I know the wind's going to be blowing out of the north where we're headed, and that's exactly what we need. It's blowing pretty steady, 8 to 10 miles an hour." And I said, "We're going to be downwind of those deer when they come to us." And I said, "I ain't going to need a scent control suit." And he still was adamant about it. And I finally said, well, "Do me a favor." I said, "Stick your finger in your ear and try to get some of that wax out for me." And I mocked what I was telling him to do, stuck my finger, and I said, "Come on, put it in there. Get some of that wax out." And he worked in there real hard. And after I let him work in there pretty good, I said, "All right, pull your finger out." And I said, "Now smell it." He put it up to his nose and winced and said, "Oh my gosh." I said, "What'd your scent control suit do for that?" And I didn't have to say another word. All right. Well, we went to the woods. I set up 40 yards from him and watched him take his first shot at a deer 10 yards from him. Now, the reason I think that the wind is you got to hunt the wind because I've spent a lot of time in the woods. If somebody tells me that something works a certain way or doesn't work a certain way, I got a filter based on experience that will tell me there's a possibility of that being true or it's probably bunk
Hmm.
because I've got some experience. Okay. Now, my point here is that I've done the scent control thing. I've actually had a scent control suit. I've done the deodorants. I've done the wash your clothes a certain way. But then I hunt so much that there's days that I get off work after running an aerator all day long. I look and smell like nobody loves me, and I ain't got time to take a bath and get anywhere where I have a chance to get in there before they do. And I go on and go to the woods, and I literally one particular time I had this happen. I went and sat on the ground, and I had a deer come out and stay in front of me for over 15 minutes. And the last time that I saw him, he was 3 steps from me. And I've been working all day and looked and smelled like nobody loved me.
That actually brings up like I've seen and heard on other podcasts people talking about that they once they get out of the stand they immediately stick their clothes in plastic buckets or something to completely seal that outdoor smell so they don't contain it. And they sometimes they've even said that they would bring that in all the way in if they go into like a long distance. They put it in a plastic bag just so that they don't contain some sort of human scent. But to me, in my experience, I've had times where I forgot and I woke up completely forgot that I didn't wash my clothes. I didn't have time to take a shower. I didn't have my deodorant. I put the clothes on that happened to be out in my bedroom, and my wife would be spraying her perfume around. And I went out, and sure enough, I still saw deer coming in probably 15, 20 yards away.
Hmm.
But it kind of baffles that there's obviously, I guess it comes into that point of maybe I was lucky that the wind wasn't going into their direction, but it made me think sometimes that maybe there's something more to it than just the scent control. There's got to be something.
Well, the scent control can minimize the scent enough that you might make them think if they're used to smelling human scent anyway, like in a suburban area, then you might trick them into thinking that you're farther away than you really are. I can buy that. That sounds reasonable to me. But if the wind is blowing from them to me, that's what I want. Now, a lot of people will tell you, here's what most to be honest with you, I really believe that the average hunter it takes work. You got
Hmm.
to it's mental exercise to think. Here's what happens: a guy decides on Tuesday that on Saturday he can hunt, and he's going to hunt this honey hole. Now he needs a north wind for that honey hole, and that's really the only wind he needs. Any north, northeast, north, or northwest would work. And he's decided that's where he's going to hunt, and he's excited about hunting that spot. Well, he wakes up on Saturday morning, the wind's blowing out of the southwest, but he don't care because he don't have a plan B.
Hmm.
He's going to his honey hole.
I've caught myself doing that a few times.
Well, he gets snorted at.
Yep.
Okay, and that's not fun. Okay, so my point is that a person needs to have as many stands as they can possibly have, and he needs to let the wind. The wind always dictates where I'm hunting. It always dictates where I'm hunting. I'll tell you this: if you're going to bow hunt, if you see light and variable, go hunt a stand you don't care about, because that's the weatherman's way of saying that the wind's going to be swirling. So you
If
can't
you if
predict.
you see what?
If you see a forecast that says the winds are light and variable,
Oh yeah.
don't go pick up a rifle that day. Hunt a bean field, okay?
Hmm.
So
But if
basically,
you
if the weather did come in and you were in the spot, if it happened to shift, would you pretty much think, well, my day's done, or go find another location, or
No, I can't control that, and I've decided the same thing.
Attitude.
I got to just stay here, and I'm
wait it
not going to
out?
wait it out. I was hunting in a rural, and literally in a backyard of a customer's one time, and we're supposed to have a northeast wind. It actually switched to southwest, and the deer kept coming up close to me and turning around and walking out. I said, well, I got to do something, and I had some vanilla extract with me because I use vanilla extract when I'm videoing to get them to stop in certain places.
Hmm.
And I literally poured that whole bottle of vanilla extract on me. I said, I got to do something. Well, I shot a really nice 8 pointer that evening.
Shot or petted as it was licking your ear?
No, I shot it. I shot it. These deer, they won't come to people. You still have to hunt them.
Okay.
But you're right. They are suburban deer. The wind, no, I can't let the fact that the wind shift a little bit. I just have to say, all right, I hope the wind's not blowing like that when the deer comes my way.
Well, going into that, talking about suburban deer,
Mm.
because public land can be anything from a large WMA or a large farm field that is a community, or it goes all the way down to the suburban deer, behind apartment complexes in a city, behind someone's house. How do those deer different from those WMA deer that are on large pieces of property? Do you hunt them differently, or do you look for different things?
No, I pretty much look for the same things. I let the people that see them tell me what they're seeing. Okay, because they're the best scouts I got. Okay.
You were saying something, said a lot about the stands that you use, and I think you said that you were using a long wolf. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have you,
Mhm.
by chance, ever heard of? It's been around for quite some time, but it's called the tree saddle.
Yeah, I've got one.
You do?
Nice.
Nice. Okay. Scott and I actually know the developers, and they've done, I think, an incredible job. In fact, ever since I started using that, that's been my only tree stand. And but you said that you have them, but you still prefer to use the long wolf. I mean, is there any time
I,
that you use one or the other?
well, I video my hunts, and it's kind of hard to do with if when I say I've got one, you're talking about it. Actually, you just sit in it,
Yes,
you
sir.
take it up the tree, and basically you're hanging on the side of the tree with the rest of your feet on two little pegs on each side of the tree. Is that correct?
That's
Yes,
correct.
sir.
Okay, I've got one, and I was thinking about using it. I've never used it. Okay, but I did buy one years ago. But since when I started videoing, it's a totally different setup, and because I want to use that tree saddle with my canoe, because I
Hmm.
don't want to carry all that stand and stuff in a canoe and then try to get a deer out too. The tree saddle was something I was going to try to do, but I got to figure out how to video
Well,
and do that too.
what are you using for? Because that's one thing that I have experimented with,
Hmm.
and it's totally outside of topic. But What are you using for your video equipment with your tree arm? Is it a 3 swing or is it only a 2 swing?
It's two. It's the same one I bought from Mike McKenzie years ago,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I've had it since. Oh my gosh, I've had it since '98, I think, '98 or '99,
Hmm.
99. Uh, Actually, if you look through those videos, I've got a video on how to video your own hunts, and I've got several
Oh yeah.
hunts on there that I filmed myself or videoed myself,
Hmm.
and I. There's a lot of people out there trying to video their hunts, but you could tell they're trying to video their hunts if you understand what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm trying to make it
Well,
where you can't tell.
and you do a great job with it. I mean, I spent some time watching some of those videos, and
Hmm.
with the saddle, there's some really cool things you can do filming your own hunt because you're off of the tree, and the tree is essentially you can always put it between you and the deer.
Hmm.
When you mount, you kind of learn by being out there how to mount the camera so you can swing it. I used at the time a 3 swing arm, so it
Hmm.
basically folds 3 times. I mean,
Hmm.
at any point in time, I can do a single twist and in the same motion that I'm doing my draw and moving around the tree. It allows for filming actually very effectively and very easily.
Well, you've inspired me.
It's
I'm
it,
gonna
it-
I'm
it's a
gonna
fun
pull that thing
tool.
out and give it a try because there's some places that I probably wouldn't hunt because I wasn't sure I'd be able to video because of the
Oh man,
taking the canoe.
it is, and it becomes kind of it does take a little bit of time because you have to get comfortable with where you normally like to sit at in the saddle, whether you like standing a little taller or like sitting down and then
Hmm.
coming away from the tree to draw. But you
Hmm.
kind of feel your comfort zone of where you like that camera mounted. And
Hmm.
the thing I love about it is it just at any point in time you can conceal 90% of your movement from the deer because you can at any point get behind the tree and put that tree between you and that deer. That,
That's
that that's why I like it so much.
that's cool. That's really cool.
I would recommend
Yeah.
though, if you decide you haven't actually used it before, right?
No, I have not.
I would think if you decide that you were going to try to do this, to take it out a couple of days beforehand, hang it into a tree, really feel the motion, get used to it, because at least people I've known that's maybe the very first time they ever got in the tree with the tree saddle, they felt uncomfortable because they didn't really quite understand how to maneuver with this. But after they got the hang of it, they loved it. It's just that first time, it usually takes a moment to like, oh, I can do this, I can do that. Maybe I shouldn't be wiggling this way, or man, it just yeah, I would recommend at least open it up, try it out a few times, get comfortable with it before you take it out into the woods.
Oh,
Mhm.
that's good advice. Let me
Uh,
say something about a GPS before we. I
Oh
don't know how
yeah,
much
definitely.
long.
Okay.
yeah, just about to go there.
Okay. I have hunted in a lot of places. I hunted down in Florida,
Hmm.
and Florida is one of them places that can be intimidating because it is so thick and swampy, and you get turned around down there, and some of that land is so vast. A lot of people don't realize that there's no humans. From 30 miles inland in Florida, there's more alligators than humans, and there's a lot of there's a lot of undeveloped ground there, so it can really be intimidating. So years ago, I bought three GPSs before I finally decided to learn how to use one. I gave the first two away, and shortly thereafter went and bought another one. And I asked myself, well, why am I buying this? And I said, I'm going to learn how to use this one, and I did. And let me tell you something, it opens up a whole new world to you because now you can go to a place like that. You still got to use good woodsmanship. You still need to know where north, south, east, and west is. You need to pay attention to the, what time of day is and know, the sun and all that kind of stuff. You need to know how to get around without it if you had to. But it really makes it possible for you to go to an unfamiliar piece of ground and hunt it like it's not unfamiliar to you.
Hmm.
It's really amazing. It's an amazing tool, and I think everybody should have one.
Is
Do
there?
you
Go ahead.
Yeah, but do you use those on all of your public land?
Oh yeah.
So when you go set a stand or you have your area, are you plotting those areas so you can get into them in the dark, or are you using it just for scouting purposes?
No, I use them to get into the spots, and I also use them if I use my boat. I'll mark my boat when I get on shore. I use it when I'm scouting so I can know, what kind of wind I'm going to need. Because if you don't know, which direction anything lays from where you're at, you don't know which direction you would need the wind to blow. So I use it for that. I'll tell you one other way I use it, and I don't hear too many people talking about this, but I'm telling you this is probably one of the best tips I'm gonna share. On mine, there's a set of cellular tables,
Oh yeah.
and cellular tables are amazing. Okay, I'm telling you, they work. I don't know why they work. Don't ask me. I'm not a scientist. I don't have to know why they work. I just need to know how to use them. And they predict major activity periods during the day. And I've been hunting them now for 15 years. I mean, I literally been hunting them meticulously for 15 years. I have to make myself go hunt if there's not a major activity period. That's how. Now in the rut, that's a totally different thing. There's a different dynamic happening there that the cellular tables don't matter. But the way the cellular tables will have an impact during the rut is the does are still gonna they're still gonna I really believe with every fiber in me that deer are gonna move during those major activity periods. And if they're moving, they're eating. You ever seen a deer that was standing up that wasn't eating, that wasn't in the rut?
Very rarely.
Okay, there you go. So if they're in an activity period, they're feeding or going to feed.
Hmm.
So all I do is I try to get where they're going to feed.
So what type of what brand are you using
I'm
specifically?
using a Garmin,
Garmin. Okay.
a little Garmin. I've had it for 10 or 12 years.
Hmm.
And when I bought it, it was $10 more to get one with cellular tables. So I bought the ones with cellular tables.
Technology has changed quite a bit.
I'm sure it has. I'd probably be embarrassed.
No, if it works, it works. If,
Yeah, there you go.
man. Well, I could seriously like just this conversation has spurred so many questions that just I know I have personally. I would love to have you on again and go over some more stuff. And dive deep into some more topics on the techniques and kind of why you do and how you've learned some of those.
Okay. I'd be flattered to ask me again if anybody's, any of your listeners would like to look me up on YouTube. It's How to Hunt with a Two in the center,
Hmm.
and there's several videos on there that I feel are empowering. There's more coming. I plan on me and my boys are going to do a web series this fall, and my intent is to I want to edify good kids and let them talk about their mentor and let the mentor talk about what they did to have good kids. So
That is awesome. That is, yeah. And we will definitely push you. I mean, it's been a pleasure talking with you, and we're very grateful that you came on with us. It's
thanks for having me.
Oh yeah,
Anytime,
it's
guys.
definitely our pleasure for you to be
All right.
here.
I look forward to hearing from you.
Do you feel like you got all the questions you wanted?
oh hell no, no, I got a million
Okay.
freaking questions I want to go into that with that. Like there is so many things. I'm like, oh we, so I'd write a note down. I'm like, oh we,
Yeah, I completely. I wanted to go into the GPS, but
Mhm.
there was just no good segment to even bring in because he had so many other things he was talking about. I was like, "Ooh, that's really good. That's really good."
I mean, that guy's so freaking knowledgeable. And the cool thing, and I think where his whole story in hunting fast resonates with me is, he shot a deer his first time out and didn't shoot something for 11 years.
And it almost went with me because when I started hunting, I was 12, and I never got a deer until I think it was 21.
Did you shoot? Well, I'm trying to think. How long before me and you met did you shoot your first deer?
A few months, like it was that season.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, because how old are you? What are you? 32?
31.
31? 31. That's nuts, dude.
So
It's seriously, it's been 10 years. It's literally been 10 years since we met.
yeah,
That's nuts. But yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. I went into it, and I mean, we hunted hard. We legitimately hunted that first 2 seasons. We legitimately hunted 2 days a week, if not more.
yeah,
I mean,
religiously.
it was literally every pretty much every Saturday and Sunday.
I think
Or
it
a
was
day
it was
during-
Wednesday and
Yes, that's what it was.
yeah.
Like Wednesday and Saturdays. Meet at Mall of Georgia. Jump in and let's go.
Oh man, another solid podcast. Another guest that came on has incredible knowledge. Monty, man, I'm so glad we brought him on. If you want to find out more, you can always go back, and I encourage you to go check out www.mybowrush.com/003 to check out all the information through our show notes.
Yeah, and you know what? So this is just such a small clip. You guys just get the podcast, we spent an hour and 45 minutes talking to Monty, and he has so much information, so many stories that, there was no way we were going to be able to pile that all into one podcast. We wanted this to be specifically about, his view on hunting public land in the Southeast. There is, 10 other topics that we dove into. So those are all going to be on audio files on the actual website. Go there, listen to those. He's a great storyteller. He has a ton of information, and he's just so entertaining to listen to. So make sure you check out the rest of our conversation on our website. It's mybowrush.com.
Well, Scott, this was our third podcast, and I can't wait to see what we're going to be doing for this the fourth one. How about you?
You know what? There's a lot of people that we've been talking to. We have some really cool people lined up. It's going to be probably another week before we come up with the next one. But please, tune in. Keep checking the website. Keep checking Facebook. Check Twitter. We're on all of those, and we're excited to be able to start this and really get into it and bring you guys information that I know a lot of you guys are looking for. One thing that'll really help us is if you guys go to www.mybowrush.com/iTunes. If you can, give us a 5-star rating, leave us a comment, let us know how we're doing. We want to make sure that we're bringing you guys information that you guys want to know, and we're bringing the guests on that are able to do that. Let us know anything you think about the show, what you want to hear, what you want to know, and that's what we're here for. We're here to help you guys out, help you guys become better and more successful hunters. I'm Scott Nelson.
I'm Travis Stowe.
And we don't have a catchphrase yet, so go get a BowRush. It's opening week. Yeah, it's still horrible.
We don't have a catchphrase yet. It's a work in progress.
Like my deer season.